Well, hello once again. In this opportunity, we're going to be talking about verbs, okay? We are starting with verbs because they are like the most important constituent of our, let's say, clauses. Um, I don't want to start talking about clauses, but it's inevitable for some reason. Um, the theory for these for some of these topics you will find them in sections 2.3.2 and 2.4.3. Make sure when you go to section 2.3.2, which is about lexical verbs, that you only read or focus on the morphological and the semantic test, not the syntactic one, which is included there as well. Well, whenever we're talking about lexical primary and modal verbs, we are referring to structures. And as such, structures can have different functions. Lexical, not so much. So lexical verbs can function only as main verbs. Probably you can. It would be a good idea if you make sort of a chart of this, drawing, a mind map, or something that helps you stick this to your in your mind. Okay. Then primary, the structures. Okay, the primary verbs can only function. Can function as both, as auxiliary and as main. And finally, modal can only function as auxiliary verbs, okay? In section 5.2.2, you will find further information about this. I'm giving you just some examples of lexical verbs. So if run becomes instead of any other verb you can think of is a lexical verb, except for the ones that are listed here. So primary verbs are only these three: be, have, and do. Modal verbs are these nine, okay? Besides these 12 verbs, all the rest will be lexical, okay? The primary verbs will always be these three, even when they're working as main verbs, they are going to be primary, okay? So the function will not determine the structure, but the structure will determine what it can function as, all right? Now, whenever we're talking about the function of main, okay, main verbs, they usually occur in the middle of my message. For example, if we finished the sentence here, clause, period. If you take a look at occur, which is my verb, it is in the middle of my clause, all right? It's determining what's before and what's after it. And they are the most important element because they determine the other clause elements. That's what I was talking about, what I was mentioning. Occur, the fact that I have occur here gives me a hint of what might come after it. In this case, I'm given information about the place. Okay, occurs where or when. The same happens with told or with is. For example, you tell somebody something. Okay, that will be the usual structure for the verb tell. The verb be here, which is conjugated, of course, the verb be here determines that after it, I have a quality, I have a characteristic that describes what's before. Fred is the tall guy, the tall guy is Fred. Okay, so verbs, main verbs, determine what's going to be before them and after them. They determine the participants, they determine the constituents that can be, all right? So that's why they are so important for our clauses, for our messages. Don't go around the term clause so much right now. Don't think about it too much. We're going to be developing further in upcoming classes. And main verbs are marked for tense and person if there's no other verb. Okay, if they are the only verb in my class, they are going to be marked for tense and for person. So, for example, over here, is marked for person because I'm not going to say Fred are or Fred am. I'm going to say Fred is because it has to coincide. The verb has to coincide with the subject. Okay. This is called subject verb agreement, by the way. Told here is marked for tense. It's indicating me that it's in the past. Okay, so it's not evident the markedness for person. Okay, but it is for tense. And occur here. If I didn't have they, if I had it, I would say it usually occurs with an s at the end because it has to coincide with the subject. Okay, but I say occur here because it's they, it's not it. Then, if you would like to further read about it, I'm going to go down with a pointer. Section 5.2.1 on page 75 will give you further information about main verbs and auxiliary verbs. Okay, auxiliary verbs, when they occur, they go before a main verb, and they are marked for tense, for person, and for modality. Okay. So does Emily know about you? Evidently here, the does is marked for person because I'm talking about Emily, third person singular. So no is no longer marked for person because the mark is on the auxiliary verb. And then Raul should be arriving anytime soon. Raul or Raul. Here we have a model. So it's marked for modality. It's not marked for tense nor person, but for modality. Raul should be arriving anytime soon. And evidently, I can have more than one auxiliary verb per clause, let's say. I have two auxiliary verbs, one main verb, three verbs in total. Okay? One next to the other in this case. No, primary and modal auxiliaries have some differences. Both are auxiliary verbs in the sense that they are added to a main verb to help build verb phrases. But primary auxiliaries, which are three, be, have, and do, have different functions. Have is used to form the perfect aspect whenever it is used as an auxiliary. Okay, so for example, we could say, "Have you seen this movie?" So the have there, which is at the beginning, have you seen this movie, is used as an auxiliary. It's a primary auxiliary, sorry, and it's indicating the perfect aspect. Be is used to form the progressive and continuous aspect and the passive voice. So I am working, I am speaking. In that case, I'm using the verb to be together with a lexical verb with ing. And the passive voice, this he was robbed. That example, it's from a book. And he was robbed. In that case, I'm using the verb to be in the past to form the past passive voice. Okay? And then do is used in negative statements and in questions. So don't do this. Do you like chocolate? So negative statements, questions need the auxiliary do, which sometimes is so very complicated to acquire. Now, modal auxiliaries are 9 and they express modalities such as necessity, possibility, obligation. We're just going to say that about modal auxiliaries because they are a topic that is aside and needs further development in another class. So by now you should just know that they are always auxiliaries there, so they are always accompanied by another verb, which could either be lexical or primary, but functioning as main, and they express modality. That is it. Of course, you can just go over this list over and over so that you learn that they are 9 and which ones they are. Okay. Now, we're going to be doing a little practice in this example, which says my theory was that these were men Aunt Alice had hoped to marry. I underlined some verbs. Was, were, had hope, marry. Evidently, when we do a brief analysis, we can see that was here is functioning as main verb, but the structure is obviously primary. The same happens with where is functioning as main verb, but the structure is primary. It does not change. Then had is an auxiliary verb. The structure is primary. is a primary verb functioning as auxiliary. In the case of hoped, it's a lexical verb functioning as main because it's the only function they can have, and it's a regular verb. Regularity of verbs is something that you have probably practiced at school or at an institute if you have ever attended one. And regularity of verbs refers to those verbs that in the past either add the ed or change the form. Okay. Then marry is a main verb. Its function is main verb because it's lexical, and it's regular because the past of marry is married with ed. No, what I'm defining here is whether they are lexical, primary, or modal, that's the structure, whether they are functioning as main or as auxiliaries, and whether they are regular or irregular in the case of lexical verbs. Primary verbs are always irregular. The past of be is was, the past of have is had, and past of, I forgot the other auxiliary, we haven't do. The past of do is did, okay? Now, have a go to these examples, analyze the underlined verbs, and decide the structure, the function, and the regularity, okay? So you can stop the video. I don't have the solutions anyway, so, well, that will be it. Bye now.